Hey guys, Jackie, welcome back to my channel, and on this segment of how to tailor, I'm going to show you how to snatch our scrubs to make it fit our waist. So first things first, we need a seam ripper. This one's from Amazon, and we're just going to go unseam the back center stitch. And today's goal is to hopefully thread an elastic through the waistband, and because I've noticed for this specific pair of scrubs, the center seam is actually sewing the entire waistband part together, if that makes sense. So we're just going to undo that for now. And once we get that vertical seam undone, we're going to unstitch a little bit of the horizontal seam, roughly about an inch or two on both sides of that vertical seam that we just did. So after that first center back seam that we just undid, we're actually going to do the other two seams on the left side and right side. The second one that I'm doing here is actually the right side of the seam. It does take a little bit of time because you want to be really perfect with the seams that you're ripping. Try not to rip your fabric, because with scrubs fabric, if you puncture a hole, it's really obvious. So take your time with this. It took me a bit of time to do this all together. So all in all, we're going to undo 3 separate sections. The first one I did is the center back, and then I did the right side and then the left side. So here I am just counting the 3 seams that we just undid. One is the center, one's the left side, and the other is the right side. And next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to fix the drawstrings. I don't know why it's like this, but you pull it to the left side, the right side cinches. I don't like that, so I'm just going to swap the 2 directions, if that makes sense. I'm just going to thread the left side through the left hole and the right side through the right hole, so that way when you pull it, it pulls evenly from both sides. As you can tell here, I'm pulling from the right, it pulls from the right, I'm pulling from the left, it pulls from the left. Now we need an elastic. The elastic that I use is roughly 12 inches to 14 inches. You do want it extra long because you won't be sewing the entire 12 inches or 14 inches. So I personally would opt for 14 inches. Taking 2 giant safety pins, I'm just going to pin the front and back end, and I'm going to thread it through the seam on the right hand side. You want to go all the way through. Here I'm checking to see if the elastic is actually longer than where I want to sew down. You want to leave about roughly ½ inch to an inch, and I'm just taking the safety pin off and sewing right along the stitch. I'm sewing on the outside and I'm being really careful with where I stitch because I want it to be super seamless. And y'all see how invisible that looks? Chef's kiss. I'm just double checking to see if the elastic is longer than the spot where I sewed, and then I'm going to sew along that horizontal seam just to really clean up everything. And here you do see some white stitches. I'm going to explain in a little bit, but trust me, trust the process. It looks super seamless. Okay, now I'm just threading the elastic all the way through, and we're actually going to sew up the center back. And here is where the white stitching comes from. I noticed that because I don't sew the white stitching, when I sew along the horizontal line, I feel that I don't actually sew along the fabric in the back, so I would miss and there would be gaps, if that makes sense. I'm horrible at explaining, but here I am. I'm just making sure that the hems are lined up, and I'm using the white stitching as like a marker so I know exactly where I should sew along. And then here I'm just sewing along right on top of the white stitching. My sewing machine has been having some issues with the needle. I think it's not strong enough to go through the layers of fabric, so I did have a bit of difficulty, but afterwards it's completely seamless, and you will see when I remove the white stitching, immaculate, chef's kiss. And the next step would be to completely thread the entire elastic through the waistband all the way to the left hand side, and we are just going to repeat the process that we did where we want to pull the elastic past a seam where we want to sew. And I'm just going to pin it while I remove the safety pin. Right after that, I'm sewing vertically right along the elastic, and I'm going to finish up that side with a horizontal seam as well. The last step is to go back to our center back and finish it off with a straight horizontal stitch. And that is it for today's tutorial. It was super easy. It probably took me about half an hour to do this demonstration, but it's super easy if you know what you're doing, and I hope that this helps, and I'll see you guys in the next one.